Welcome to this week's episode. Ayrton has lost his voice, so is unable to do an introduction this week. This week he speaks to David Nelson from Open Pitlane and Motor Events Racing, and thanks to In the Pits radio show for these awesome new tops from Mental Raceway.
So Dave, can you tell us a little bit about your background in motorsport and how you first got involved in racing?
Yeah, right. Well, it's been a little while now. I was quite old when I first hit the track. I was about 25 years old, and I went into a competition with Mazda where you had to write like a short story on what does Zoom Zoom mean to you, which was their marketing policy at the time. And I won the competition with about a dozen other people, and my very first track day was driving the Mazda sports cars at the time, like 05, 06, so 3 MPS, 6 MPS, MX5, and RX8. And my very first laps of the track were with Dick Johnson driving me around, which was absolutely wicked. Just like he did in the touring cars in the 90s. Like it's like you almost interview him while he's driving, and that was a great kind of baptism into motorsport first experience, and from then I couldn't get it out of my head. I've been extremely lucky since then to go to some amazing track events all over the world, Nürburgring and Spa and places like that. I had kind of a boring period in my life, I guess, in the early 2010s, and I was in finance. But I always had, the itch to do something in motorsport. And when we had this new amazing track open called the Ben Motorsport Park in 2018, I went along to the first private event there. And it was kind of a track day come sprint. So we had transponders in the car. It had a competitive element, and it was kind of half a day on the international circuit, the 5K one that the supercars use, and then the afternoon we were on the GT circuit, which is the amazing 35 corner 7.7 kilometer layout. The format was basically 4 groups of cars, 15-minute sessions per hour each. I had an absolutely great time. I really, really enjoyed that event. New track. I had some upgrades on my car, and had a really good time. But 15-minute sessions just didn't work, particularly on the longer track. When you've got a 5-minute out lap, 5-minute in lap, a lot of people weren't even getting flying laps in. And I just had in the back of my head that I've been to again, these be very lucky to go to these amazing events in Europe, and their tracks are even longer than we have here. And I went, well, why don't we do an event like they do in Europe, which is an open pit lane concept event, where basically anyone registered for the event can go out on track whenever they like, stay out as long as they like, and you've just got a constant stream of cars filtering on and off. So I actually went over to Europe, met with some track day organisers over there that I've been going for so long that they're close personal friends now. And we did the numbers, and I got kind of some of the critical info I needed. And then I came back here and booked the racetrack, and the rest is history, as it were.
Yeah.
Since then we've run about 35 to 40 events, mainly at the Bend and Malala, but also probably mostly prior to COVID, we did a few of them interstate as well. But when the borders came down, kind of just simplified it a bit and kind of did it where we know it best, which is here in South Australia. So
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I've seen these days at Winton. Is that right?
Yes. Track school, John Boston over there, he does run an open pit lane format as well. He's the only other one doing regular dates, to my knowledge. We're not, I know John. I actually did my observed license test with him when I first got my racing license. yeah, he puts on a great event, and we kind of leave each other to it in our different states. But it was certainly something that just wasn't being done commonly in Australia. And I had kind of 18 months of doing a few events and getting some experience up, getting my volunteer base and officials base sorted out, and then I went. Some might say foolishly, and took a massive pay cut and decided to do motorsport full time instead of finance. So, yeah, that's in the history books now. So, yeah, I'm having an absolute ball.
Yeah, awesome. And obviously it's going well at the moment. So you guys in South Australia, you've got the bend, Malala, and is that it?
In South Australia, yes. Yep.
Cool. And
so, like I said, on occasion we've done some other tracks. We've done Morgan Park a few times. We did Lakeside once. We've done a Winton, done a Sandown, but and I've got some partners over in Tasmania that do a similar thing. We kind of refer to each other. So yeah, but 95% of it's here in South Australia.
cool. And what would you say? Because it's obviously open pit lane, two people can go at the same time if they want, in different categories. What are the two wackiest cars you've had on track at the same time?
Oh, look. Yes, you've kind of nailed on basically our biggest risk factor is we've got fast and slow cars together. And look, from my point of view, grouping cars by the car performance is a pretty poor way of doing it, because driver skill and experience comes into it, I think, a lot more significantly. But yeah, we do have very fast and slow cars together. So we might have an Excel out there with a Porsche Cup car with a prototype. We're basically insured to run anything with covered wheels, so we can't do formula cars. But we can do open cockpit prototypes. We try and limit the number of those at any given event, because obviously the pace differential is pretty big. And as you know, with an aero car, once you commit to a line and you find someone halfway around the corner going half the speed, you're kind of stuck. Like, that's the line you've got. So we brief very heavily, and we actually brief those kind of cars separately about the expectations of passing safely and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you had a Porsche Cup car and an XL on track, you're in the driver's briefing, you're making it very clear to the Porsche Cup driver that you've got a slow XL, and then you're making it clear to the XL driver that you've got a fast Porsche.
Yeah, correct, 100%. So yeah, we brief very heavily about driver expectations, and that people need to be looking out the back as well as out the front. So it's a lot more on safe and correct passing procedures. Obviously, the onus is always on the quicker car to pass safely and when it's appropriate to do so. And we actually have a policy where it's on invitation only. So we say, yes, you can pass on the straights, you can pass either side, you can pass into the corners under moderate braking, not competing for apexes, but it has to be on invitation. So the car being passed has to indicate their awareness that they've seen you, and that having everyone on the same page there really makes a big difference. The other side, and kind of what balances that risk, and the data that we've got from Europe is actually that an open pit lane format is a slightly safer way. It's marginal to run a track day. So yeah, as I said, we've got fast and slow cars together, but what it does, not having the cars all being released every 15 or 20 minutes, whatever the session is, into the same piece of track, and then them having to fight and push past each other to try and get a clear spot on track, means it takes the pressure off the drivers. And it also means that, if someone's, on a quick lap and they're trying for a PB or something like that, not that we encourage that particularly, it's, we try and keep it a social thing. If someone's coming up behind someone else and they're on a quick lap and they go, oh, my lap's been ruined and I've only got one lap before the end of the session, then they might make that decision just to push past without an invitation. And that's when you have cars come together. Whereas we go, well, you know what, there's no session length. Take as long as you want. So if you don't like where you are on the track, you're surrounded by cars, come through the pits or come in and have a drink, go back out. Or just go, hey, I'm just going to stay behind here and I'll nail the next lap. So by taking that pressure away from the drivers, it means they make fewer mistakes to start with. And yeah, again, the data from Europe shows us that it is a marginally safer way to run an event.
Awesome. And you've obviously got a lot of data from Europe. Have you personally done the Nürburgring in any sort of car?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Many times. I've been going since 2008. So kind of only a couple of years after my first track experience, I went, this is bucket list, got to go there. And, you know, I was just working in a PAYG job at that time. My budget was very limited. Thankfully, every year or two, I had a work trip over to Frankfurt. So I'd, negotiate with the boss to have a couple of days off in Germany afterwards and take my own flight back. And, at that time I was doing, saving up and doing like 3 or 5 laps in a year in a trip in a rental car. And these are all track prepared rental cars. You don't want to take an airport rental on the Nordschleife. That'll get you a ban pretty quick. But as you can see in the background there, I've got my Nürburgring track map up there. And actually earlier this year, I clocked up my 300th lifetime lap there. So it was a pretty proud achievement, and I was pretty excited to do that. And now, of course, I take customers there. We do an annual trip with some of my Open Pitlane customers who, despite having absolutely awesome track here in the Bend Motorsport Park, they go, well, I've done all the Australian tracks. Let's do something else. So I've got a trip coming up early October this year, and we're taking a group of 10 or 12 Aussies over to experience the Nürburgring and Spa, and they're only just over an hour apart. They're actually the same, different sides of the same mountain range, obviously with a country border in the middle. But it's quite a nice back road drive over across the hills to get from one to the other. So that'll be exciting. Taking some of my Aussie customers back over there later in the year. It'll be the second time this year for me. So
yeah, cool. And obviously 300 laps is a big achievement around the Nürburgring, since it takes professional sports cars just over 7 minutes to do one lap.
Yep.
So are you quite confident that you could close your eyes in bed and memorize the track corner by corner? Because I've done a lot of laps in the sim, but I don't think I could.
The sim is a different level, and while it helps you learn the track, helps you learn where it goes, it doesn't give you kind of the feeling inside the car in the same way. The first thing you'll do when you get there in real life, and I probably did 2,000 sim laps before I got there first time in a very rudimentary equipment, like I'm talking Gran Turismo 4 days back then. But the elevation change is the first thing that gets you, and just nothing really prepares you for that. So yeah, like I said, when I first went over there, I'd do 3 or 5 laps, and that's all I could afford to do, and then fly home. And now I'll go and do a trip, and I'll do 20, 30, 40, 50 laps at a time. So I'm really lucky to be able to do that. But to answer your question, yes, I can now lay in bed and steering wheel above my head like Hemsworth in Rush, mapping out Monaco in his head. There were certain sections that took a lot longer than others. So like some of it I could do, I could kind of visualize maybe after 30 or 40 laps, and there are others that took a couple of hundred to really be able to connect that section to the last section. So
yeah, I'm pretty good up until the carousel, I think, and then after that I get lost for a little bit, and then towards the end of the lap it comes back to me. Yeah, and that section from basically from the carousel you go to Hoacht, which is the highest section, and from there up until Brunchen, YouTube corner, people call it, that all looks really samey. And that was probably the last section that I could visually memorize. There are some other sections that took maybe longer to actually get confident in physically driving. But yeah, that section you mentioned is probably the last bit to be able to visualize. Yeah, awesome. And obviously, the Nürburgring. It's a very challenging track, and if you sit down and watch YouTube, you've probably clicked on a video of watching people smash rental cars and everything like that.
Yes, 100%. I've actually been in one. Not crashing, but the guy behind me, who was chasing me, he was a local, and I was just in a Fiesta ST rental, and he went off trying to keep up where he probably shouldn't have. So there's I'll send you the link at some point. I won't say here, but it's quite a funny video.
I might put it up afterwards.
Yeah. And the ring has really cracked down in recent years, the last 3 or 4 years, on being able to publish that content. It is private property, and even all the vantage points where you can get to are technically private property. So they're actually taking people out that are filming that content because it's bringing the ring into disrepute and whatnot. I probably have a slightly different view on that because I think people need to be aware of what can happen. It's not just for entertainment. It's going, hey, this track has some gravity to it. It's a serious track. Little mistakes get punished pretty hard. And you have a lot of people now go that they've only been watching on YouTube the last 5 years. They haven't really seen any crashes outside of proper racing in the tourist sessions. And, they get there and think it's Disneyland and they'll all be fine and the electronic nannies will save them. And, you have some people with some pretty big bills at the end of the day. So I think there needs to be a kind of healthy balance with showing people, the dark side, the bad side, and what can happen. So.
Yeah. And what would you say is the most exotic car you've personally rented around the circuit?
Exotic. So I'm a guy that goes over there and I'm like, I just want to smash out a bunch of laps. I don't want to do as many laps as I can for my dollar. So I'll usually hire an entry-level hot hatch. Like I had an i20N last month, was brilliant. I drove some like nicely track-prepared higher level hot hatches like Golf R's and i30Ns. I don't go there and rent GT3s and things like that, mainly because the excesses are very significant. And if you crash a GT3, it's €100,000 excess, for example.
Yeah.
The rental companies basically self-insure because if they are actually insured legally, they have to be. But if they make a claim, they just don't get insurance again. So basically, you almost buy the car if you total it. So in terms of exotic cars, one that I've driven at Nürburgring and Spa and I really miss is the Lotus Exige 240S. So the last of the supercharged 4 cylinders that rev to 8,500, and they're an absolute blast. Particularly at Spa, I would say they're not that stable, and Nürburgring really rewards stability. Whereas at Spa, you can kind of let it have its head and like let it move around a little bit more and have some fun and build your skill that way. But there's no one that hires Lotuses anymore. They're just too expensive to keep on the track. They're expensive to run and they're fragile as well. So a lot of people would smash gearboxes and motors and go downshift from 5th to 2nd instead of 4th and things like that. So it's a shame. But if you're talking exotic cars that are a lot of fun and not too heavy, Lotuses are Lotus would be my favorite out of the interesting ones I've driven.
Awesome. And with Open Pitlane in South Australia, how do you guys sort of help people who want to bring something along and they're not sure how to do it all? How do you guys get people into Grassroots Motorsport? And can you sort of give us a little bit of a vision of what it takes?
Yeah, look, I'm a big advocate of getting people that are totally new to motorsport and kind of enjoying a low pressure way of doing it. I think, some of the track hosted days can be quite high pressure because you've got that limited session and you're being pushed out on track, herded out all at the same time. So even though, we get a lot of people that are experienced and want to use our events as kind of a test session or to really hone their abilities. I actually think it's a great entry point. The issues that we have is that we're basically the most expensive track day in the state, and I can't apologise for that. We don't have the multiplier of 4 different groups of cars going out, so we have far fewer maximum entries, which means the cost is higher accordingly. But it also means you often don't get people with that are kind of absolute idiots because they've only paid $80 or $100 to be there and smashing into other cars and things like that. It tends to be people that go, hey, I know it's expensive. I get why it's expensive, and I understand that it's still a benefit to me, and I want to, I'm committed to honing my craft with kind of other like-minded people with the same sort of thing. In terms of getting people into motorsport, like I said, I've got a big passion for getting new people, especially young people, into motorsport. I think, unfortunately, in Australia, we lose a lot of talent kind of overseas because, you get, kids come up through karting and, the really, really good ones have won everything by, 10, 11, 12 years old. And then they can't get in a tin top, even a basic one, till they're 14. So it's kind of, we often lose those. So that's something I'm an advocate for in, trying to, I guess, lower that threshold a little bit to put, kids out in slower cars. For example, I've got a Volkswagen Up 1 litre 3-cylinder hatchback that we've done budget endurance racing in. It's one event, it's one event outright. But it's all about just keeping the car moving, even if it's not going that quick, and avoiding time in the pits and doing your strategies and whatnot. And I'd love to kind of be able to expand that series down in terms of age. And I'd really love. So I'm talking about my other business here now, motor events racing. I'd really like to have an all junior team at some point. Whether we can get the age down, or whether it's 14 to 18-year-olds, but having all the drivers, the team manager, the strategist, everyone working on it, and that there's still plenty of adults around, kind of in a support capacity if necessary. But that's definitely one of the goals. One having an all female team, and one having an all junior team in motor events. That would tick some boxes for me.
That's awesome, an awesome goal. And recently we saw the all women's, I think, is it LMP3 team? They took victory in Bahrain, I believe.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And her name escapes me just for the minute, but we had the first outright victory in a Formula 4 in the UK. And it's embarrassing, I can't remember the name because I was just speaking about her yesterday, but she's in the... Sorry?
Is it a Joanne?
That doesn't ring a bell, but I can probably jump on the computer and look it up. But she's in the F1 Academy, which is the replacement for the W Series, and that's an all women. But she's also then, jumped in against the boys and beaten them all outright in British Formula 4, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And with Open Pitlane and motor events, you obviously got great goals, and to get young drivers like myself, and even you were saying team members, junior, it's a great goal to have. And I believe there's a lot of kids who don't get the opportunity, like myself, who get to go race Formula RX8, and spend the big bucks doing it. So I think motor events would probably be an awesome opportunity to give young people who are quite decent in motorsport but haven't got the money or the connections, I guess, to sort of get started.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, all too well how much it costs doing sprint racing or short format racing. Even an Excel, like if you want to be anywhere near the front in an Excel, you've got to spend 40, 50 grand and the rest on the car. And then, and then you get, 7-8 lap races, and the costs that up really quick. Whereas we get we get some Excel racers in motor events. They'll actually pull out their race motor because obviously they're expensive in their life. They'll put a $50 wrecker motor in because, if you're 10 horsepower down, it actually doesn't matter with us. Whereas if you want to be at the pointy end in short format racing, you've got to have every bit of power you can get. So one thing, and you might this might resonate with you, Evan. Let's say you've got a young kid that's come out of karting and is ready to get into tin top racing, just turned 14. Dad buys him an Excel, wants to get his seat time and his or her experience up. And what better way to do that than to have, the kid, the dad, the driver coach and the mechanic all driving the same car for 24 hours and feeding back off each other and comparing, their lines and their experience against each other for a similar cost to what it is to enter a normal race weekend. So that's what I'm passionate about is just getting people massive amounts of seat time, for the lowest possible dollar and therefore being able to develop themselves while also raising money for a great cause. I need to drop in there as well. Motor Events exists to raise funds for Rare Cancers Australia, which is outside your big three cancers. We're really not very well funded in Australia, both for research and supporting the people affected. So we do that at the same time.
Yeah. And by people entering the events, I'm guessing that goes towards a donation and it goes towards the cause of getting, the exposure out there, because it's not only people donating that makes a difference, it's the people knowing about it. That
100%. 100%. So not sure if you're aware, we've got a little event on in Queensland. Actually starts tomorrow, the Clippy Cup. It's a 12-hour event at Queensland Raceway. And we've got a handful of V8 supercar drivers along, and just in the lead up to the events, they're talking about it at press conferences, at supercars and things like that. And it's been such a great thing. And the event hasn't even started yet, just in terms of exposure for what our cause is. So we're really privileged to have that. And hopefully once they get a taste for it, we'll get some more of them along to maybe one of the SA events. Melonade is our kind of Christmas party event. It's in November, end of the year, and it's 25 hours but broken up over 3 days.
Yep.
So it's we have an overnight pause and then we change the track layout, and then overnight pause and change the track layout. So you get to drive all three layouts at the bend. Well, 3 out of the 4. We don't do the east because it's a different pit building. But what that means is you get to experience the longest track, and then each day we work down to a shorter track as, some cars retire and break down and whatnot. Keeps the density up, but it also means that because we only count total laps towards the result, each day is actually worth more to the total result. So we've had cars that didn't get out of the pits on day one actually end up on the podium because by day 3 the track's half as long and they're doing twice as many laps. So it's quite a cool way of doing it, and we're really lucky to have this track in SA that we've got the flexibility to do that.
Yeah, awesome. If you send me some of the dates or send me the link to it, I'll definitely have a look because I love the cause behind it, and if I can get a car out there, I'll see about putting something together and giving it a go because it's a great cause. And look, we wouldn't want to get you on here just to promote it and not do anything about it. So I want to try and jump in if I can. Obviously I'm in Victoria, so it's quite a drive to the bend, but we'll make it possible. And if you're there for,
well, we're an hour closer than Adelaide, so it's only if you're even in the city, it's only really 6 hours. Only 6 hours.
Well, I'll be heading...
it'd be great to have you along. Even in the RX8, we've got 2 other RX8s coming to my knowledge in November, so could be a good thing.
If I find a spare motor, I'll do it because I'm telling you now, those things are once they blow, they cost a lot of money. So
Yeah, and they drink a bit of fuel as well. That's the other thing to consider with endurance is you've got to top them up more often. So, but they're a great platform.
I've been eyeing up an XL down the road, so there might be an opportunity there. But look, honestly, I'm going to the Bend for the RX8s later in the year, and hopefully I get to meet up with you, and we can obviously talk more about Open Pitlane. It's like I said, I got you on the podcast tonight to try and get some promotion out for it, and motor events racing as well. Or motor racing events. What do you call it?
Yeah, motor events racing.
Motor events racing.
So, yeah, the thing with motor events racing. So I didn't, unlike Open Pitlane Australia, I didn't invent motor events racing. Ben Maguire in Queensland, it's kind of his baby. But just when he was expanding outside of Queensland, that was COVID, and that's when the borders came down. So he's basically tapped someone on the shoulder in each state, and we were able to, with closed borders, still host events in that time. But what's good for me is that I can go over and if I want a racing holiday, I can go and bring a car over to one of my interstate colleagues' events. I can go a day early, help them with setup and sign on and scrutineering and whatnot, and then the rest of the weekend's mine, and I can jump in a car and actually have some fun myself. So
that's awesome. Is there any supporters you'd like to thank for getting you to where you are at this point? And if you had any advice for someone who wanted to come along, what would be the big piece of advice for them?
Yeah, look, if you're saying someone that wants to get into event promotion, I would say don't. You've got to really, really love it. But if someone wants to come along and drive, all they've got to do is hit our Facebook page, Motor Events Racing, or the website, motorevents.com.au. If you Google motor events, it'll come up. If you Google Open Pitlane Australia, it'll come up. But I'll give you all the links so you can put them in for your viewers in the comments. I would say just get out and do it. You don't need a race car to go to like do a track day, for example. Just get out and do it and see if you like it. Have some fun. At Open Pitlane track days, we also do passenger laps throughout, which is again something we're very lucky to have. It was very hard to get insured initially, and through our very solid safety record, we've been able to do that. So. The other thing is bring a helmet, jump in with a mate, and come and experience the track, and then maybe you'll want to bring your own car out the following time.
That's awesome. So thanks for jumping on tonight, Dave. I really appreciate it. Please don't feel like I was acting uninterested. I've been really under the weather. I've got like
no issue at all.
The bummy face on and everything. But to anyone watching,
that's all good.
I hope you enjoyed, and make sure you check it out because it's a great cause, racing for cancer, Rare Cancers Australia, and, going out there and just giving it a shot, it never hurts. So thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And check out Motor Events if you can, and Open Pitlane.
It was really good to jump on. Thanks very much.
Cool, thank you.